Apex Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely Stream Deck. For more information about the Stream Deck, the link is in the description below.
Hello everyone and welcome to AOR PC F2 Round 7 here at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. I'm here today, alongside me as always is a ladder, and we will be bringing to you hopefully more thrilling action to carry the momentum that we saw last week out around Austria. We only have 11 drivers today, unfortunately, but hopefully they'll be able to give us as much action as we saw last week when we only had 9 drivers. And as always, we are always looking for more members. So if you are watching at home and think you got what it takes, or you just want to join in on the fun, then by all means, sign right up. Sign-ups are still open. And Ladder, would you like to fill us in real fast on what happened last week?
Yeah, so last week it was actually Flash who took their debut win in only their second ever race in this current F2 season. So Flash doing a great job to take the win there. It was an incredible final lap, sprint to the line between 4 drivers. In the end, it was Flash from Bogan, from Hittinen and Geldervan. It was a really, really fun race, as you mentioned, even though we only had 9 drivers. So 11 today doesn't look great, but, you know, and 9 drivers can produce a great race. What can 11 do?
Yep, exactly. So let's hope that, again, we get some nice racing. I have the chat open, so if there's any kind of sound delay or if it's quiet and you are watching, please let us know. I will continually pop messages as reminders, as I seem to be having a few issues on the streaming end as of a few weeks ago. So, yep, don't be afraid to make any comments, as definitely trying to improve the quality for all our viewers today.
Now the drivers have begun to make their first excursions out of the pit lane and onto the Silverstone circuit for the British Grand Prix. The qualifying session has begun, and there was a couple of minutes at the very beginning there when no drivers left the pits for quite a long time, but now the majority are out there on their first laps of the day, and Bogan in the Williams is leading them around, looking to have yet another strong qualifying for the Polish driver, who has managed several pole positions already this season and yet to pick up a win despite that fact. So he'll want to absolutely kick that trend today. But I think the way in which he'll want to kick the trend is by winning and not by not getting pole.
Yeah, I feel like he's just like, he's had a lot of good races, especially the last one, but he's come so close to being able to nab those some of those wins, but, you know, he just hasn't been able to get the threshold, as it looks like Hittinen has had left the session. See if we can get him right back in here. Might be having a little bit of internet issues today, which that is okay, but happens. But yeah, I'm excited to see if hopefully we can get Hittinen back in here, because him and Bogan are having a nice battle at the top of the championship right now.
Yeah, absolutely they are. Hittinen 1 point clear of his teammate in the Williams. 82 points for Hittinen, 81 for Bogan. Despite the fact that Bogan has not won yet this season, they are still second in the standings. Then quite a big gap. 81 points plays 57 for Geldervan in third, and then Creo and Zoran in fourth and fifth. Creo not here today, hasn't been here for a couple of races now, so not sure if we're going to be seeing Creo again in this championship. It's a shame because Creo had come on really strongly actually in the sort of revamped season. At the very beginning of it was looking good, but now other things definitely getting in the way for the German driver, shall we say. There's a couple of new drivers here today, and one of them is in the gravel. Codemasters in the Ferrari has lost it through the very opening sector of the lap. A very odd place to lose it actually before any actual braking zone. You know, it's usually flat out through turn 1, no problem, but Codemasters has evidently had some kind of issue. And then we also have Jacob in the McLaren, probably Yakov actually, as as it is an Austrian driver, I believe, in the orange car.
Yes, as Bogan goes fastest preliminarily with a 124.7 as Potato is over a second adrift from that time with a 25.9. But that time for Bogan's pretty respectable, very good starting time. I do expect drivers to get into the lower 24s. I don't think they'll get into the 23s like we've seen in like esport level, but I do believe that that time will improve as more drivers continue to put in laps, as Jakob crosses the line with a 25.4. The new driver, as you're talking about, puts in a solid banker lap, but again, you know, I feel like there's definitely more time on the table today.
Yeah, I mean, for sure there's a big gap between Jakob and Bogan, but Jakob, sorry, just going to look in the top left, see that 4 people have made lap times, and of those, he is ahead of 2 of them. It's going to be feeling pretty good for the Austrian driver in this very early stage. Nice little confidence builder there, but we'll wait to see whether the rest of the field can come through and do something about it. Zoran up towards the line makes it the second driver to go into the 124s, as it's a 124.918. A couple attempts shy of Bogan, but nevertheless a pretty good lap time from Zoran, who seems to have traded consistency for speed a little bit lately, and has been performing pretty well in qualifying more recently. BenQ in the Haas has already invalidated a lap. Gelbevand also invalidated, and we saw Codemasters in the gravel earlier on, so straight back into the pits for the Ferrari driver.
Yeah, I believe Gelbevand had a spin coming out of, I gotta pull up the track map since I am not as familiar as this track as most other people. He had a spin coming out of Luffield. So I saw some yellow flags over there, and he'd already invalidated his lap, so it looks like those tires are definitely going to be done for him. So yeah, hopefully he doesn't have the same issue he had last week at Austria, where he struggles to put in a lap until the very end of the session. So, because he has shown a lot of good pace for us this season.
Yeah, still pushing hard to the end of the lap as well was the German in the Racing Point. They're pushing it all the way for Rusto. Yeah, losing it on the exit of Luffield, a pretty understandable place to lose it for sure. It's very, very slippy, that particular traction zone. Probably the hardest on the whole circuit, maybe joint with the sort of club, the final corner. The exit of that chicane can be really tough to get the power down as well. But in general, Silverstone tends not to be much of a traction-limited circuit, as most of the corners are taken at very high speeds. There's only a couple of major braking events around.
Yeah, speaking of the track as well, we will ride on board with Cient. He's currently finishing up his outlap, and since he is only one of 2 drivers on track, we will allow him to show us an onboard around the track. You know, let's give him a little bit of love. You know, the Haas driver looking to definitely have a little bit of a better outing than he had last week, as we saw the Haas team had a pretty rough one, even though they did get points out of it, but it definitely wasn't the best around a wet Austria.
Yeah, they both have a similar race to what they had in Austria last time around. Only one of them will get points, that's for sure. Now Sisson begins this flying lap here. All flat through the opening part of the lap, braking heavily now into turn 3, I believe Village, unless I'm very much mistaken. Now into the loop section, turn 4. The traction could be pretty hard here as well, but not as hard as the other 2 places I mentioned. The system has no problem with it whatsoever. Down the first of the main straights now, and into Brooklands we go. A little bit of understeer there, not quite meeting the apex on the inside. Going to put you wide for the entry to Luffield, but that's not going to matter too much. Luffield, a really interesting corner actually, because you can take all kinds of different lines through there. Sissons in general opting for quite a tight line to the apex. Up towards Cops we go. Now this is flat, but it's not easy flat. You have to put the car in exactly the right place, but Sisson manages that with ease. Now we get into the infamous Maggot and Beckett section. Slowly getting slower, each of these right and left-handers in this S section. Then out of Chapel, you slingshot down the back stretch here. We're getting towards Stowe, which is the last major challenge, high-speed challenge of the lap at least. Consistent, dropping up a little bit more speed than was necessary, I think, in the braking zone there. Was able to take a good line, but probably could have taken a little bit more speed. A little bit deep into the first part of Club. The second part is neat and tidy and up towards the line. Where will this be? It's up to pole. An identical time to Bogan. I'm not sure how that's consistent on pole, but nevertheless, that is a turn up for the books from the Haas driver.
Yeah, an outstanding lap by him. Glad we rode on board with him there, as Kalachu is also finishing up a lap right now, but he looks like 8/10 back of Sisson's lap. I guess Sisson must have gotten him by a fraction of I don't even know, tens of thousandth in order to beat the lap there, because you're right, usually the driver who sets the time first gets the position. But in this case, the game says, hey, Sisson, we're going to give it to you provisionally. So yeah, Haas already looking a lot better than last week after Kalachu goes with a 25.8. And BenQ is starting his lap, so hopefully he'll be able to match his teammates' time as well as the rest of the drivers are out on the track, either doing an out lap or on a hot lap.
Bit of a tall order for BenQ to match the time laid down by Sisson. But yeah, I assume we're going to be charitable and like you said, assume that the game is calculating these times to maybe even the 4th decimal place, and that's why Sisson went ahead of Bogan. Either that or it's yet another bug. So I think we'll hope that it is the former and not the latter, as now BenQ taking a much wider approach to Luffield than we saw from his teammate Sisson. Got on the throttle just a little bit too early, had to get back off of it and still ran wide on the exit, and as a result has invalidated the lap time in the house. We're definitely not seeing the glory of his teammates at the moment. Geldervand is out there and pushing, entering the final sector of the lap now. Into Stowe we go. And again, it's slightly similar to Sisson there. I think there's a little bit more speed to be taken through Stowe than the drivers are managing at the moment, but you don't want to run wide there as you could in previous games, because now the game will be very zealous in giving you a corner cutting warning, and thus an invalidation here in qualifying, as Geldervand comes across the line with a 1:24.928. Ere long, that would have been enough to put you up into 2nd or 3rd, but now Bogan and Oxygen have made strides at the top, and it's Bogan leading the way on a 1:24.3.
Two things to note. One, Bogan getting down to those times that I talked about before. A very impressive lap for the Williams drivers. You were talking about BenQ, and I briefly went on board with Bogan and saw his end of his lap, and it was just in awe. Another thing to note, though, Catomatic finished Sector 2 at 1 minute, 1 second, and 3/10. Now, when who was it? Cient went through that same part of the track, he was 2/10 slower. So Catomatic had an invalidated lap, but provisionally could have done a 24.5. So let's not count out the rookie Ferrari driver as well. So when he goes out and does another lap, he might be able to, give us a little bit of action at the top, along with Oxygen and Bogan.
Definitely be keeping our eyes on the newcomer and on Jakob as well, the other newcomer who has managed to get into the 124s as well. The 1:24.896. So it's currently Bogan from Oxygen from Sisson. Hittonen is coming up towards the line, has invalidated, but has kept pushing all the way to the end of the lap. And it's a 1:24.7 there from Hittonen. So that would have slotted him in just behind Sisson, I believe, and ahead of Jakob. So some pace there for the Finnish driver, but not anywhere near the level of his teammate just yet. And of course the invalidation meaning that the lap time is nothing but academic.
Yeah, and I think Catomatic onto the medium tires as now. Maybe he can take that pace and be able to nab a couple positions if he feels he can put down a good lap on the mediums compared to the likes of Potato and Kalachu, who I'm sure can go a little faster. As BenQ crossed the line with a 25.2. Not a bad lap for the Haas driver, who did it on 2-lap old soft, so I definitely expect to see him improve on his time, assuming he does not invalidate, as it looks like he is running out of fuel. Yes, I think he is out of fuel now as he's going very slowly. But yeah, solid lap for the other Haas driver as well as the team looks to rebound after Austria.
I'm not sure he is out of fuel, actually. I think he's just going incredibly slowly because he's concerned about these tires.
That's true.
He's already put 2 flying laps through them, and he might well have to start the race on them if he doesn't improve. So he's just nursing them as desperately as he can when he heads back to the pit lane, just to try and eke out a couple of extra percentage points of wear before the start of the races. Now Sisson, his teammate, is pushing in Sector 1, but gets the loop section all wrong there. And I think may well have actually just completely backed out of this lap already, as the Haas driver still has the DRS going and the DRS open, so might still be pushing as we enter Brooklands now, and is doing so. And now into Luffield as well. Once again, it's the tighter option of the 2 lines that Sisson is taking. It's more the U-shaped line than the V-shaped line for the German in the Haas. Now heading up towards Cops Corner. Once again, had no problems with this last time around, has no problems with it this time around either. Absolutely nailed to the track is the grey and white pass as we enter the Maggots and Beckett section now, and that all looked pretty neat and tidy as well. Very much under control, perhaps a bit more pace left on the table there, but still about half a second down because of what we saw at the beginning of the lap in the loop section.
Yeah, he might just be saying screw it because he's got time to do another lap as he goes into the pits as expected. Yeah, I think he's got to the point where he's like, all right, let's get back to the pits. He's got enough time to go out again, and you don't really need that set of tires later because I'm sure he's got at least one more fresh set and one that's probably not that much used.
It's going to be Oxygen who's going to start the next flying lap of the session, I do believe. Completed the outlap, and away we go through turn 1 and turn 2. Again, this is just easy flat should be for all of the drives, although we have seen Codemasters having some adventures there. And you can see actually the dirty tire marks from Codemasters having been in the gravel all over the track in the first few corners, as Oxygen will now be pushing down the first of the 2 straights up towards Brooklands we go. What will the sector time be like for the first one? He's narrowly up on his best lap time, and that is the second best lap time of the session. So Oxygen definitely on a good lap as well here. Not too much time to be gained or lost in the first sector, though second sector is where you'll really separate the wheat from the chaff here as we go up towards Cops. Actually getting a little bit of grass on the outside tyre. That might compromise grip just a little bit, and Oxygen drifting a little bit wide through there. So that probably was a bit suboptimal as we enter Maggots and Beckett's once again. Probably the hardest part of the track for all of the drivers here. Watching a bit wide through Chapel. You can afford to do that, but it's probably not the fastest way through there. As Oxygen now is narrowly down on the best time. So overall lost about a tenth of a second relative to his best lap in sector 2 there. Again, not really meeting the apex of Stowe and having to get out of the throttle just a little bit, and as a result just diving straight back into the pits in the Red Bull.
I wonder if he felt he's just not feeling confident through Cops, because he went down to 7th gear, and you can normally hold that through an 8th and flat, and going down to 7th definitely costs him a tenth or two. So I don't know if that's a setup issue or if hitting the grass there maybe got disturbed his car a little bit, but either way he does have enough time to get out there, but it's going to be tight because this is a very slow pit lane.
Yeah, Kilachu's out there on 3-lap-old soft tyres at the moment. The Frenchman has been looking strong in the last couple of rounds, but struggling here in qualifying at the moment. Currently, the lap he's currently on has been invalidated. I expect to see him heading back into the pits sooner rather than later. In fact, he needs to do so. In fact, does he have enough time to do so? He's going to come into the pits right now. I don't know if he's going to have enough time at all, actually. So Kilachu might well be struggling here and maybe hoping to qualify 11th at this point.
Yeah, I think it's probably his best bet at the moment, unless his timing delta is a little different from ours, which it could be. But according to the stream right now, he will be in the garage and he's gonna be in the garage now. And it's exactly 1 lap's worth of time left, so I believe his session will be over. But for everyone else, they are currently out on track, with Hittinen being the first of the drivers. Yes, he is the first of the drivers to be on their final hot lap of qualifying.
Hittinen, the Finnish driver, has been struggling thus far in the session to nail a lap, even get a clean one together whatsoever. Sitting down in 11th without a lap time set, but it's a decent time through sector 1 as we enter sector 2 now through Luffield. Big lock up on the inside, going very deep into the corner. That's definitely the V-shaped line rather than the U-shape, which does risk running wide on the exit and therefore maybe invalidating. Hittinen got very close to doing that, but was able to avoid it. Through Cops, needs to avoid running wide as well. No problem there, as the Williams is indeed nailed to the circuit on railroads here. Now it needs to be so as well through Maggots and Beckett's. It's very easy to invalidate here, but taking it very cautiously and safely is Hittinen, but not too slowly, is taking a lot of speed through Chapel as well. It's a 101.426 thus far at the end of sector 2. Kilachu has indeed retired from the session at the exit of the pit lane, realizing that he is not going to be able to get around once again. Hittinen through Stowe, it all looks neat and tidy. No more chances for invalidation, really. So that is a breath of relief will already have been sighed in the Williams cockpit as the Finnish driver up towards the line. And it's up in a second with a 1:24.623. Oxygen can't respond as he's not able to complete his outlap in time before the checkered lap flag falls. So Bogan sitting pretty at the top right now and might still be improving. What can Sisson do? What can Jakob do? A lot of drivers out there pushing, but it does look like this is in Bogan's hands right now.
Yeah, currently riding on board with Gelbevand as he is coming through the last 2 corners of the lap. Will he be able to challenge for pole? He gets a very nice exit out of club, up to the line. What will it be? A 1:24.6. Not good enough to challenge. Who's next? I believe it is BenQ. He will cross the line, and a 25.5 will not improve. Cowtomatic returns to the pits and retires from the session. Next up, coming across the line, is Bogan. Will he be able to increase his lead at pole? He does, with a 24.1. Zoran next across the line with a 24.8. He is in 7th. Anyone else crossing the line? Cient, can he challenge for pole? No. He cannot. Can Jakob challenge any and get up any higher? He does not as well. So it looks like Hittinen, who is basically on a cooldown lap, is the last of the runners. Actually, Potato's coming up to the line. Is he going to be able to improve? He does not either. So it's looking like we have our finalized qualifying results, while Hittinen just needs to return to the pits at this time. But Bogan with a very impressive 24.1, and that wow reaction that you said was definitely what went through my head there.
Yeah, Bogan, that is an incredible lap time there from the Polish driver. The pole on pole, as it has been many times this season, yet to convert that into a win thus far. But with such a pace differential between himself and the rest of the field, there was only one driver within about 5/10 of him, and that driver was still about 3/10 behind. So Bogan looking really, really good there. You can see, yeah, only one driver within 5/10, and that driver 3.5 tenths behind. Bogan, surely this can't just be qualifying pace right here. This has to be able to translate into race pace with such a margin at the front.
Yeah, definitely something I'm very surprised to see. Cian having an absolutely phenomenal qualifying session with a 24.4 up in second place. Hittinen in third place, definitely struggling a little bit with the invalidations once again with a 24.6. Fourth place, Oxygen, another great qualifying session, but let's hope he has a better race than last week. Gelbovan down in fifth. Jakob, the first of the two rookies, in sixth. Zora in seventh. BenQ 8th. Klachu 9th. Potato 10th. And Catomatic, the other rookie, rounding out our drivers today. Now, as we load into the race lobby, let's go over to the championship standings. We'll take that, we'll look at that, and then we will spill what we just saw on our screen. But nevertheless, looking at the championship, Hittinen, who is starting P3 on the grid, is currently our championship leader by one single point over his teammate Bogan. So the Williams team is definitely having a very nice championship at the moment. Gelbovan all the way back in third with 25 points down, with a total of 57 points to his name. Creo, who has not started the previous two races and is not starting again today, is dropped to fourth. Again, hopefully we see him back. Zoran is in fifth. And then as we go down more toward down the order, we got Vespa. Flash, who actually won in his second race, not in his first, is down at seventh. And then the likes of Prostychek, who has retired from the season, is in eighth, so Kalachu and Oxygen will move up the grid as well. So that will, some of the drivers will need a little bit of updating, as we do have two rookies as well today. And we'll have to see how the championship unfolds as we are getting close to the halfway point in this revised season. But now back to the drivers as they go to on their formation lap. What do you see, Ladder?
Well, I see a few spots of rain here in Silverstone, which is about the least surprising thing anyone has ever said, for sure. Silverstone, well known for being in a country where it rains quite often, and it has proved to be so once again here in the F1 2020 game. AOR F2 League will be stricken with intermediate conditions. It's light rain at the moment for these drivers, but the sky does look quite dark, so that could transition into heavy rain at some point. And yeah, I wonder which of these drivers will be feeling good about this and which ones won't be feeling so good. I know that someone who won't be feeling so good is Catomatic, who decided to go on mediums in that at the end of last qualifying session, and then elected to abort the lap to start in 11th to get free tire choice. Well, now you don't get free tire choice anymore, because everyone will be starting on the intermediates whether you like it or not. So that's all gone out the window for the debutant.
Yeah, I don't know if he thought it might have been dry enough to have dry tires or whatnot, but this definitely caught us off guard, as we did not know the race would be wet. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. Hopefully, CN, who's starting in P2 after, I believe that is a season best qualifying performance by him, will be able to have a better race than Austria and not go backwards and be able to challenge for some serious points and, hey, maybe even a podium. So I'll definitely be watching out for him today. But yes, it is going to be looking like a very fun race around a wet Silverstone once again.
For sure, yeah. Sissant has only managed one finish thus far this season, and that was the 9th in Austria last time out, which was hardly a glorious finish for the Haas driver. So it won't take much to improve for him, but he will want to improve in the best way possible. He'll be hoping to take the lead into turn 1 here. He has a big opportunity, but Bogan looks fast here. However, the intermediate conditions can do something to interrupt the momentum that Bogan has. Get something in the back of his mind telling him, well, you're fast in the dry. Are you fast in the wet? We're about to find out here in Silverstone as the lights are coming on. All 5 lights are now there. And it gets underway very, very quickly indeed. Here looks like a good start for Bogan, but an even better one for Sissant, who's flying up to the lead into turn 1. And already he has the move done. It's the 2 Williams following him behind with Gelbavand in 4th. Oxygen in 5th. Benku's had a good start, and Oxygen's up the inside of Gelbavand into turn 3 here. First major braking zone as we head to 4. Oxygen going to try and brave it around the outside as Benku just touches the back there of Gelbavand. Benku looking involved, trying to get involved with this fight. But at the front, it is still Sissant leading the way from Bogan, who is close, but not close enough to think about making a move. Can Oxygen do something? He looks to the inside of Brooklands here. Gelbavand gives him the space he needs. And Oxygen doesn't really repay the favor on the exit, forcing the racing point wide. But Gelbavand has the inside line for Luffield and will be able to retain 4th for now.
Sissant, like you said, with a very phenomenal start right there, getting off the line and taking the lead over the 2 Williams drivers behind him. Benku up 2 positions as well. Looks like the Haas drivers are having a better start. Go on.
Here comes Bogan thinking about side by side with Sissant into the S section here. Sissant had a rough run through Cops. Didn't take as much speed as Bogan was able to do so. And now he's been scruffy through Maggots and Beckett's as well. On the exit of Chapel, it's Bogan with the advantage, and down towards Stowe we go. And it looks to me like Bogan will be able to brave this one around the outside. Sissant trying to defend on the inside, but has been slow through Stowe in qualifying. And Bogan is able to regain 1st place in this race before the first lap comes to its conclusion.
Yeah, a beautiful overtake there around the outside in Stowe as Bogan takes the lead and sets the fastest lap of the race. But that is expected, as this is only lap 1, as all the drivers have finished the lap. Jakob is all the way down in P10. He is down 4 spots on the lap. Not sure if he is just struggling or what's going on there. Looks like he's actually P9 as the Ferrari behind is ghosted, and Potato is supposed to be behind him. Not sure what is going on there. The little bit of desync in the lobby, but yeah, not as good of a start for the McLaren driver or his fellow rookie driver, Codemasters, who goes spinning off the track. Oh, that is unfortunate for the Ferrari driver as he rejoins the track, but that is going to cost him a lot of time right there.
Yeah, it should solve some of our timing screen issues and the fact that the Ferrari was ghosted. He kindly takes himself out of contention for the time being by spinning round on the exit of turn 5, which is not really much of a corner in the dry, but in the wet it does force you to sit up and take a little bit more notice, and Catomatic failed to take quite enough notice there. Oxygen running very wide on the exit of Cops, so that'll be probably a warning picked up by the Red Bull driver unless he really got out of the throttle. There's Hittinen now pretty close behind Sissant as well, who after a monster first couple of corners is starting to struggle. Bogan building a gap out at the front at the moment. The interval says half a second, but I can tell you with my eyes it's more than that right now. At the very back of the field, Potato has managed to make his way past Jakob, who must have made a mistake on the exit of the S section. That is Chapel, and as a result falls down to 10th. The 2 debutants in 10th and 11th at the moment, not having a glorious performance in their first AOR F2 races quite yet.
Yeah, I do have to applaud Benku, who went off the track at the exit or on Chapel. He went off the track and was able to hold on to the car in these tricky conditions and did not lose a position. Not sure if he got a warning for it. I would assume he would, but he's still in 6th position and only half a second off of AOR Oxygen, as the field is basically spread out, you know, they're pretty tight. You know, it's under a second gap between everyone until right now when Bogan gets the second on Sissant. But yeah, definitely some close competition towards the front of the field, as we got an 8-car train at the moment.
Yeah, now Sissant has actually closed down a little bit on Bogan once again, so he's a little bit closer than he was maybe half a lap ago, but still not really close enough, still outside of the 1 second margin. Of course, that means less in the wet than it does in the dry because no DRS available. And it is harder to follow cars in the wet in this game. It can be very, very difficult with the dirty air that comes off, much more so than in the dry, surprisingly enough. Glatu, though, isn't having too many issues with that right now, all over the gearbox of the Renault of Zoran up ahead. The Hungarian got a better run on the exit of Cops, and now might be looking to get involved with BenQ ahead of himself, as BenQ runs very wide through Chapel, has to abort the corner entirely, and Zoran will say thank you very much and take that one. You mentioned that BenQ held it after getting off track in Chapel last lap. Well, he hasn't held it quite so well this lap, as he had to get out of it completely. Kilachu almost making contact with Zoran there, as he was very hot on the brakes into Stowe. But it will be Zoran holding on to that position for now. BenQ losing out to both the Renault and the Racing Point.
Yeah, BenQ looking to, gonna have to, he's got a lot of work to do. Assistant picks up a 3-second time penalty, the first of potentially many, as it is definitely tricky to keep it within track limits and to stay insanely fast around this track, as Assistant sees.
Kilachu up the inside here of Zoran into turn 3. That's a brave move from the Racing Point driver. Zoran gives him the space, and now trying to battle back through turn 4. However, the inside line, there's no grip there when you try and put the power down, as Zoran is currently finding out to his cost, and as a result, it is Kilachu up into 6th, getting past Zoran as he tried to do into Stowe half a lap ago.
Yeah, some Kilachu on the move again, just like we saw last week in Austria, but he doesn't have as big of a pace difference to the rest of the field as he did that week. But right now, he's stuck behind AOR Oxygen, who is looking like he's struggling a little bit as he's fallen 2.3 seconds adrift from our leading group. So Kilachu is going to need to make quick work of Oxygen if he wants a chance at a podium, as he gets a very nice run out of Cops. Will he think about making a move through Maggots and Beckett's? No. Backs off a little bit on the entry, but maybe he'll be able to make a move at the end of the hangar straight if he can keep it together through this corner. Goes a little wide, but stays on track, puts his overtake mode on, and he is gaining on AOR Oxygen. I think he will go around the outside into Stowe. Will he make it stick, though? A little bit. He's still there. Oxygen gives him a squeeze, throws Kilachu off the track. They're going side by side into the penultimate corner. Kilachu locks up the front tires a little bit, and he will not overtake Oxygen for the position. As a little farther up the field, Sisson got overtaken by Hittinen. Did you happen to catch that one?
Yeah, Hittinen getting past Sisson there. Now Gelbevand in close attendance as well. Kilachu actually just made contact with Oxygen in the final corner as well. Just tapping the rear end of the Red Bull, letting him know he's there as he takes a wider line in towards turn 3 and looks to dive on the inside. Very impatient is Kilachu right now, trying to overtake it any even half or even quarter chance he gets. Oxygen's not going to be liking that one too much, as this guy behind me is just dive bombing me left, right, and center. What can I do to avoid it? This is going to end in tears unless Oxygen and Kilachu are very, very careful indeed. Sisson having picked up that 3-second time penalty, losing out to Hittinen as well. It was a great start to the race, but he hasn't had the pace of Bogan since then. And we asked the question whether Bogan, in qualifying, he had such a pace differential to the rest of the field that I said, surely he's going to be able to take that into the race. Then the wet conditions came down, the intermediate tires went on, and I thought, maybe not. Maybe now Bogan, another obstacle put in his way. But this time it looks like there's very little that can stand between him and victory, as long as he can keep it all together and on the road. As even now as Hittinen has passed Sisson, he hasn't been able to close down the gap at all on his teammates up ahead.
Yeah, Bogan's his race to lose right now, as he is just cruising out there on this intermediate tires. Not sure if the rain will let up at all. Hopefully it does for the sake of action's purpose, but he is in control of this race as Oxygen and Kilachu going side by side through Stowe once again. But Oxygen will hold on to the position for the time being, but Kilachu looking to make a move up the inside, but no, he backs out of it, and Oxygen holds on to 5th place.
Seen this one before. That was almost carbon copy of what happened last time around. Kilachu getting a bit harder on the brakes into club this time, though, as Codemasters picks up a 3-second time penalty, pushing as hard as he can to regain the rear of the order. Not able to do so. This one I've seen before as well. Kilachu trying to surprise Oxygen once again with a dive up the inside of turn 3. Oxygen much wiser to it this time around, giving a little bit of a bump to the Racing Point. Zoran has the box seats for this one, and it is still Oxygen up ahead as Zoran almost loses the car under traction through turn 4. Kilachu dumping the overtake mode, and Oxygen has a lot more left in the tank there actually in terms of the battery charge, and might just be able to hold off Kilachu as a result of that. Through Brooklands they go, and they're still side by side. Kilachu not wanting to take the full outside line through Luffield and can't get a switch back either quite yet. Oxygen holding on to 5th for now, but once again the better run is there for the Frenchman. Yeah,
Kilachu, I don't think he likes that real outside area of, what corner is that? Luffield, yes. I don't think he likes it that much, because I don't think there's as much grip out there as there would be in the dry, considering it looks like there's a little bit of a dry line forming, but not enough to switch tires at the moment.
Race now continues with Kilachu losing it through Chapel in frustration, stuck behind Oxygen, spinning out, not into the wall. He will be able to regain the track, but he is losing heaps of time. Now he has grass all over his tires as well, that he has to make sure he doesn't spin again when he gets down to Stowe. And it's all gone wrong for Kilachu. We thought maybe it was going to be the same charging drive we saw last weekend. Unfortunately, not to be quite yet for Kilachu, although still, it just makes it gives him that little bit of extra more space to charge now.
Yeah, I guess we'll see if he actually does have front-running pace like he did in Austria in similar conditions. Hopefully for his sake he does, but he has got a mountain to climb now as he is 4 seconds adrift of Jakob and then over 10 seconds adrift of where he was on track. So either way, that makes Zoran the next man up and attacking Oxygen, who is, like you said, he has that battery, but he definitely looks like he's struggling a little bit out there. I'm sure the likes of Zoran and BenQ would like to clear the Red Bull driver right now.
Yeah, Oxygen has been driving a train for a little while. It was Kilachu who was helping to slow down Oxygen as well, it must be said, forcing moves left, right, and center, forcing Oxygen to go defensive here, there, and everywhere. And as a result, now 5.5 seconds behind Gelbervan, Sissons, and Hittinen, who themselves are 3.5 behind the race leader. So, yeah, it's definitely not looking too good for the guys from 5th downwards right now, as they are stuck behind Oxygen and are quickly losing sight of the podium positions right now.
Yep. And note to Steph in chat, working on the sound issue, apparently you are quiet for the stream. My end, you're just fine, but I believe it is the audio that is coming in from me is a little, I guess it's quiet when it's being uploaded to the stream, so I'm trying to see if I can do anything to improve that at the moment. Let's see, I'm not sure if I'll be able to do much at the moment outside of just lowering my volume, so at least it's a little, I guess, a little more even in that regard. But yeah, hopefully it improves, and I'll look into it after the race to improve it going forward.
Alright, Zoran has now managed to make his way past his compatriot Oxygen, and now wants to try and prove that he does have the pace to try and challenge the podium sitters. Sissant falling a little bit away from Hittinen, I should say now, with Gelbervan still in close attendance behind the Haas, but still not able to quite make a move just yet. The gap between Bogan and Hittinen has stagnated now at around 3.5 seconds. It's been that for a couple of laps. So Hittinen actually just had a poor run through Luffield, and it elevates itself up to 3.6 seconds, now 3.7. So Bogan's still looking pretty imperious out there at the very front as Catamatic picks up their second 3-second time penalty of the race. That is 6 seconds in his pocket, and Sissant on 3.
Yes, another thing to note, Kilachu did a 37 flat. Not sure how much battery he has left in the tank, but he's now up on the back of Jakob and is 4/10 faster than Bogan's. Well, at least compared to best times, it was 4/10 back faster than Bogan on the previous lap. So flexing the muscles, he is doing that, but now he's got to deal with overtaking the McLaren and Alfa Romeo drivers who are currently in between him and the group of cars he was with before.
Gelberman getting all locked up into club there and struggling, trying to find a different route maybe through the final part of the track as he's trying to get away past Sissons, but not able to do so right now. The gap between Hittinen and Bogan extended another 4/10 of a second on the last half of that last lap. It was just getting worse and worse for the Finnish driver in second. You can see his very narrow championship lead slipping away, I'm sure, as Bogan is leading comfortably out at the front. And there is the front-running pace from Kilachu we were mentioning earlier. Purple across the lap as he's past Jakob, and now looking to get up to the Tato as well in the Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, the Racing Point driver really needs to figure out what's going wrong in qualifying, because in the race, especially in these conditions, he has shown race-winning pace, but he is just struggling in qualifying, and as a result, he gets stuck in a group of cars, you know, getting caught up like he did behind Oxygen, and as we saw in Austria, he kind of got stuck in a little bit of a train at the start, and it cost him a lot of time, and I think that's what might cost him a solid high points finishing position today. But we still have a long race to go. We're only on lap 9 out of 26, but he still has a mountain to climb if he wants to even get into the top 5. So we'll have to wait and see what he can do.
Indeed he does. Lap 9 of 26, as you mentioned, and looking up at the skies, it all looks pretty similar right now. So light rain probably going to be continuing for a fair while here, although in in this game, the skies can clear up alarmingly quickly or darken alarmingly quickly as well. But for now, conditions remaining more or less consistent in this race. Everyone's still on their intermediate tyres as Kilachu is breezing past Oxygen and will be able to make the move into Stone. No trouble there. Sorry, I said Oxygen. Of course, breezing past Potato is who I mean in the Alfa Romeo. Kilachu up to 8th. Breezing past Oxygen was something he emphatically could not do earlier in the race and ultimately paid the price for that, falling down the order.
Yeah, so now he's 5.4 seconds behind Purple final sector as he does a 37.5 right there as he crosses the line. Kalachu still on a charge right now to regain positions as I believe a pit window is opening up, but with it being wet, there's no requirement to pit in a 50% race. So I'm curious to see if any driver will decide that they want to pit today. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's an interesting call, though, at the moment, because track conditions are improving right now. Almost every driver out there just set their personal best lap last time around, and then also the one before that as well. Kilachu showing that the most, as well as Bogan, who was down to a 137 flat last time around as well. So these guys are finding a lot more pace on this track all of a sudden, which might cause them a little bit of concern, because now they think maybe the track's going to get drier. Maybe we're going to get to dry tyres sooner than we think. And if so, you do not want to be the one who comes into the pits for a fresh set of intermediates, and then immediately afterwards you see DRS enabled, the rain stopping, and the dry tyres being the order of the day, because then you just have to make that extra pit stop as Ben Q now picking up a 3-second time penalty as well, the 4th driver in the race to do so.
Yeah, the 4th and hopefully the last, but we'll have to see. Because, like I said before, it's definitely easy to get penalties around here. One thing I've noticed, Codemasters, he showed some really good one-lap pace, but he's currently struggling on race pace down in P11. He did have that spin, and he does have 6 seconds of penalties to his name, but he hasn't really been able to close the gap up to the likes of Jakob and Potato ahead of him. But who has been closing up is Kalachu, who's now 3 seconds behind BenQ. And another 4.2, if my math does me correct, behind Oxygen, as he does a 36.3, which is by far the fastest lap on track.
That's 1.4 seconds faster than race leader Bogan did last time around. Admittedly, it was a bit of an off lap for the Polish driver in the Williams. Hittinen in second managed a 1:31.1, I believe. Oh, sorry, not 1:31, that doesn't sound right. A 1:37.1, I should say, last time around. So that 1:36.3 is still 7 tenths faster. 8 tenths faster than what Hittinen was able to do, who was the 2nd fastest guy last time around. So Kilachu is absolutely flying out there. And as you mentioned earlier, he just needs to sort out qualifying and maybe a bit of his racecraft as well if he wants to start getting these wins, because they are definitely possible for the Racing Point. More points, more often should be there for the Frenchman.
Yeah, as he's 19 seconds adrift from the leader. Granted, he had that spin, but that can be attributed to the traffic, like you said. And he could very well be battling with his teammate, Gelbovan, who's just stuck behind Sisson. As the two of them are falling off of Hittinen, but Gelbovan has just not found a way around Sisson. As he dives into the pits, he will be the 2nd car to pit today, as Hittinen goes into the pits ahead of him. So I guess the intermediate tires may not last the whole race, and they are going for an undercut, which I am sure you recall is very powerful around this track. So I'll have to see if the rest of the field does come in pit and when they do, if they do.
Yeah, for sure. It's very powerful and made ever more so by the fact that the track is drying up. Those intermediates, those fresh intermediates on a much drier track than they started the race on could feel really, really nice to these drivers. Give them that little bit of extra confidence to push. There are yellows in Sector 3. Is that Kilachu?
That
Again, it
is. He
Kilachu
is
slowed down the main straight, and he's lost some of his front wing. I think he's lost it out of the final corner.
He did. He lost it out of the final corner and smacked the wall. His front wing is absolutely destroyed. That is his race absolutely ruined right now. The Frenchman, who is looking so promising, his race has just basically been ruined as he's going to have to come into the pits, make a wing change. And as you can see, he was already a pit stop behind where some of these drivers would have come out. So his race has just gone from bad to worse as he drops down into last place behind Codemasters. Very unfortunate to see from the Racing Point driver.
Codemasters in celebration picks up his 3rd 3-second time penalty of the race, bringing it up to 9, and now BenQ follows suit up to 6 for the Haas driver. So some of them struggling out there to keep it on the black stuff, but others not having so much of an issue. Bogan still looking very, very solid out in the front as he comes into the pits as well, trying to cover off the undercut attempt from his teammate and championship rival Hittonen, who is pushing hard on this outlap. You can be sure of that. Only in Chapel at the moment, though. I'm not sure whether this is going to be enough to overtake his teammate. It's a very long pit lane around here and a very low pit lane speed limit, so you do lose quite a lot of time when you pit here.
Yes, I don't know how much exactly. I have not ever tried to do the math. But yeah, Hittonen really trying to make that undercut work, even if just by a lap. It is definitely, like we said, very powerful. As Bogan is currently in the pits, and he's leaving the pit lane now. And here comes Hittonen across the line. He will not be ahead of Bogan, but he might have gained a little bit of time right there. I do believe he did. Yeah, it looks like he gained about a second. Yes, he is now 2.7 seconds behind his teammate. So he gained over a second by pitting that one lap early. Phenomenal call by Hittonen to make the pit and take it to his teammate. Now we'll have to see if he can keep that momentum going for the rest of the race.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, though, it is still a 2.5 second gap, which should be enough for Bogan to feel comfortable out there in the lead. And if he feels comfortable, we know he has the pace. So I don't think it's going to be any problem for Bogan. However, the one slight problem is that Jakob did not come into the pits last time around, and in P2 does not feel like waving the erstwhile race leader by all that easily. So Bogan will be losing time every moment he's stuck behind the Papaya McLaren up ahead. Hittonen will be getting that little bit closer because you can bet that they are both faster right now than what Jakob is able to do on that old set of intermediate tires. Sissant also stayed out and is still leading the way. I wonder if he's going to throw the dice and try and take the win by gambling and trying to wait for dry conditions. It still seems like it's very far off at the moment, with the rain still falling down at a pretty considerable rate, to be honest. As Jakob running a bit wide through through Stowe, I should say, and heading into the pits, gets calmly out of the way of Bogan, and Hittonen has not been able to capitalize on that compromised lap for his teammate.
As Bogan will take the lead. Assistant did come into the pits at the end of that lap. Bogan retaking the lead, and hopefully, and for his sake, though, now the potential race win, as he's just going to have to drive away from Hittonen. But another thing to look down is, is that Catomatic into the wall in the final corner? That is. I was just about to mention Gelbevand and talk about how he just undercut Sissant, but Catomatic also missing part of his front wing, as Potato has decided to retire from the session in the pit lane, which will give Kalachu some free points, even though he is way far back now. But he might get another set of, or another point at least, because Catomatic is going to have to come in to do a wing change as his wing is just absolutely destroyed and in the same spot that Kalachu did. So maybe drivers are getting a little too confident in that corner, and as a result, it is just, hurting them very much.
It's one of the ones that's traction limited in the dry. It's even more slippery in the wet, and it's one of those corners where you always think, oh, if I can just hold the slide, if I can just counter steer at the right time and deal with the wheel spin, then I can get so much more pace through here. And then you try it, and then you're in the wall. And that's exactly what we've seen from a couple of these drivers here today. Catomatic still has that 9 seconds worth of penalties as well, so Kalachu should be able to finish this race ahead of the Ferrari driver at this rate. Catomatic, the only driver still on those old intermediate tires as well, the only one yet to pit. And that might well be a contributing factor to the Ferrari rubbing up against the wall on the exit of the final corner.
Yeah, definitely unfortunate to see. Now, he doesn't does not have as much damage as Kalachu had, so he might try to stick it out, because he does have that ginormous gap to Kalachu, but we'll have to wait and see what he does at the end of this lap, as that left side of his wing is damaged and missing an end plate, as he does dive into the pits for the wing change. So that is unfortunate for the Ferrari driver, but that gives Jakob another position as well. So the McLaren driver must be pretty happy right now, as he is up to P8 on track, which will update momentarily.
Gelbevand's race has significantly taken an upturn in the last couple of laps, as he was able to undercut Sissant, who stayed out a couple of laps longer on those older intermediate tyres, and as a result, Gelbevand has been able to leapfrog the Haas driver, who he was stuck behind, you'll recall, for the vast majority of the opening stint of this race. So that's good news for Gelbevand, who can maybe look to try and close down Hittonen, but a 3.6 second gap's a minor mountain to climb, and he's just made it worse by picking up a 3-second time penalty onto the part of the track where he's flat out and has no reason to cut the inside of the exit of Luffield. That's basically a straight, and Gelbevand has cut it there. So that's just a little bit too much greed there for the German in the racing point, as Oxygen follows suit by picking up a 3-second time penalty of his own.
Yeah, now it's interesting to see if these drivers can hold on, because if Sisson picks up another penalty, all of a sudden Zoran, who has been clean as ever and kind of what we're used to out of him, does not have a penalty, and he is 6.4 seconds adrift from Sisson. So if the guys ahead of him start battling or pick up just one more penalty, it could play into the Renault driver's hands, and he might be able to steal some extra points, more than he might have thought, because he also was stuck behind Oxygen, who has fallen 5.6 seconds behind Zoran as well.
Indeed, he is. So, up at the front, it is still Bogan leading the way pretty comfortably from Hitton, and the gap was about 2.5 seconds after Hitton pulled the one-lap undercut off on his teammate, but since then, it has only increased 3.3, 3.4 between the two of them now, or thereabouts, and the Polish driver definitely looking very, very solid at the front to get his first win of the season. All he needs to do is keep going like he is doing right now, and the win will be his. And I'm sure he has been waiting for that one for a long time. I seem to recall he was expressing his frustration at the end of last race that it couldn't quite go his way. The win stolen away from him on the final lap of the race.
Yeah.
This time he will not want that to happen again.
Yeah, he was definitely a little frustrated because, oh, it's really his race to lose. He was dominating the race in similar conditions. The race dried out. He made the right strategy call and was out there like looking like the man to beat, even though the grid was a little whacked up because he pitted onto the soft tire. But Flash was able to come in and steal the victory. But Bogan today looking to have a little bit of a redemption drive in similar conditions. Hopefully for his sake it doesn't dry up, because that could throw a cork in those plans, but it's not looking like it will right now, as we got 9 laps to go as he crosses the line, with Bogan that 3.3, 3.4 second lead, so he's not pulling away, but at the same time, he's got hitting at an arm's length away, and that's right where he wants him.
And not many battles out there on track at the moment, but one battle is between Bogan and Kilachu, looking for the fastest lap of the race. At the moment, they're both on 136 flat, but it is 136.039 for Bogan, whereas it's a 136.069 for Kilachu. So very close, not much in it, and Kilachu will definitely be looking to salvage that from this race. That's a sort of little bit of pride, something you can put on the mantelpiece to console yourself after a rather poor race, and Kilachu's already 4/10 up on his own best lap time thus far, so Bogan unlikely to be able to respond to that if Kilachu can make it work to the end of this lap.
Yeah, Kilachu's flying once again, but he needs a miracle right now, like a safety car, to come out and close the field up again, which is the exact opposite of what his little rival right there has. Bogan would not want a safety car because he likes that lead, but Kilachu comes across the line with 35.8. Must have lost a tenth there in the final sector because he was almost 4/10 up, but he only beat his lap by 2/10, so definitely more time on the table there. And I think that lap could be beatable by Bogan if he decides to pull Lewis Hamilton and turn on the afterburners, but we'll have to wait and see what Bogan's able to do, as the Polish driver is currently going around Stowe and exiting it as well. So the race continues on as is, with Bogan's brakes very hot right now from the camera view, but I'm sure that's not much of an issue for him.
Yeah, it doesn't tend to be much of an issue in this game, as Kilachu, by the way, has been in overtake mode for about a lap and a half, finally gets out of it, so that might explain why he struggled at the end of last lap, because he completely run out of deployable charge for that lap, so that's probably why he lost a couple of tenths there. Actually, Hittonen's looking a little bit closer to Bogan right now, has closed down the gap by a couple of tenths of a second, so Bogan having a poor lap last time around, but Hittonen still not really close enough to look to capitalize on that. Hasn't been really a match for his teammate on this day, as Gelbovan picks up his second 3-second time penalty as well. That puts him level with Sissant, but the gap has only ballooned between the two of them since Gelbovan was able to pull off the undercut, clearly showing that he is the third best driver in the field, at least if you discount Kilachu from the order.
Yeah, and I think Sissant must have made a mistake or whatnot, because he is now 4.5 seconds adrift from Gelbovan and only 3.8 ahead of Zoran. So Zoran right now gaining 1 position out of that, but Gelbovan, I believe, is a little faster than Zoran on these previous few laps, has pulled away just enough to give him that buffer to hold on to his podium position. But if he picks up another time penalty, all of a sudden Zoran's going to off of penalties, it's going to be able to steal a podium away. And again, like we know, Zoran is one who does not pick up penalties that often. So the Renault driver is looking to steal another podium today. And we'll have to wait and see if he can keep it clean on track and get that P3.
Yeah, for sure. That's been something of a hallmark of his thus far this season, and he'll definitely be feeling good about being clean at the moment. BenQ getting pretty close to the back of Oxygen for a moment earlier this lap, but has since fallen back outside of the 1 second mark, running wide through Stowe as well, and as a result, picking himself up his third 3-second time penalty of the race. That is 9 seconds that will be tacked onto his time. Fortunately for him, Jakob is 10 seconds behind him. So it's not a problem quite yet. It will be if he does manage to get past Oxygen at any point. Since Zoran got past Oxygen, that gap has expanded to about 8 seconds between the two of them. So Zoran putting in a decent shift in the second half of this race once he's been able to be in clean air. But he hasn't seen another driver for quite a long time now, probably getting a bit lonely in the Renault cockpit. And I feel like this race could definitely use a safety car right now to inject a little bit of something into it. The rain continuing to come down at pretty much exactly the same rate it has for the whole race. So it does seem like we're going to have intermediate conditions all the way to the end here as well. So we can't look there for our excitement.
Yeah, we'll have to see, as BenQ definitely giving us the most excitement that we can have at the moment. 0.9 behind Oxygen right now, gaining a little bit, but Haas driver struggling a little bit to fully close that gap, as we are watching on board with him right now. Goes through Cops in 7th gear, able to hold 7th gear there, which is interesting. I thought he would downshift, but I guess the track is quick enough and has enough grip to keep it in 6th gear. As he brings it through Maggots and Beckett's, holding 5th gear there. Doesn't get the greatest effects. It's Oxygen is able to pull his gap to 1.2 seconds, but BenQ is trying to respond a little bit by using a little bit of that battery that he has saved up. So, BenQ with 6 laps to go. Will he be able to overtake Oxygen? And possibly, he's going to have to force Oxygen into a mistake and have him pick up a time penalty. Otherwise, Oxygen will just hold on to that position due to penalties, as BenQ really not showing as much pace difference as we saw with the likes of Kalachu. So, yeah, unfortunate for the Haas driver, but definitely a lot better than last week. So, I'm sure the Haas driver cannot complain that much.
Yeah, 7th place finish would be nice for him at this stage of the season. Kalachu still 22 seconds behind Jakob, so I don't think he's going to, even him at the level of pace he has right now, I don't think he's going to be able to close that down in the 6.5 laps we have remaining of this race. Bogan and Hitzinen, it's still 3.5 seconds between those two. It's gone between 3.5 to 3, 3.5 to 3. Both of them pretty even at this stage of the race, but I'm sure Bogan is driving within himself just a little bit here, just to make sure that he doesn't pick up any time penalties. 1 warning to his name thus far, and similarly, 1 warning for Hitzinen as well. Zoran on 2 warnings, actually, so slightly less clean than the 2 Williams boys this time around. Hitzinen didn't set his fastest lap last time, but it's been a while since Bogan set his fastest lap, actually. It was about 6 laps ago, so he's not finding a whole lot of track improvement right now, whereas Hitzinen is. So that's something for the Finnish driver, but it's only in the order of a couple of tenths per lap, if that. And the gap is still kind of going up and down anyway, so it's going to have to be a lot more consistent from Hitzinen and a lot slower from Bogan if we are to see any fireworks between these two at the end of this race.
Yeah. How many warnings did you say Bogan and Hittinen were at each again?
1 apiece at the moment.
1 apiece. Okay, so unless Bogan makes a mistake and gets a time penalty, it is looking like he has us in the bag. Again, he's got that arm's width away. Because Hittinen was just a 1/10.5 off of his previous best, which is a 36 flat. So they're holding that low 36 kind of pace right now, but it looks like the both of them are doing it. And as a result, the Williams pair are just kind of stagnant at the front, with Gelbevand at similar pace behind them, but just not enough to really close the gap up, especially with the track kind of holding still. But as we go through Woodcott, a little bit of a sky clearing I'm noticing up towards the sky. So who knows? Maybe we can get the last 2 or 3 laps. It might dry up a little bit like we saw in the F2 car race last weekend, where, hey, if we get a little bit of dry running at the end of the race, who knows what some of these drivers will do, and if the track dries up, it might be a little tricky on those intermediate tires.
Indeed, it might be, and that would be nice, at least to have
Yes.
a few drivers rolling the dice at the very end. I'm sure some would probably stay out on the inters as well if it was only a couple of laps left to go, so it'd be interesting to see whether they'd be able to pull that off or not. That's what I'm hoping for at this stage, because right now no one is very close to each other whatsoever, apart from BenQ, who is a second behind Oxygen, but has been a second behind Oxygen for a long time and can't seem to get any closer. Bogan goes fastest of all with a 1:35.743. That's about a tenth faster than what Kilachu was able to do a few laps ago. So Bogan evidently heard what I was saying about him not improving on his lap times for about 6 or 7 laps, and all of a sudden decides to kick it up a gear, moving it to 4 seconds between himself and Hittinen, and going fastest of all.
Yeah, very impressive lap by Bogan. Didn't know if he had more left in him, but appears he's got enough life in his tires to put that lap down, as there's a yellow flag in Sector 1. It is Sisson who has spun off the track, going through turn 3 and coming out of the arena section now. He has dropped way down the order, and that has just promoted Zoran up into P4. Very unfortunate for the Haas driver, but he has not dropped too far down the order, as there was a big enough gap to Oxygen and his teammate behind. So he's just got to hold a 3-second gap to Oxygen, get those tires cooled down, and P5 should be his by the end of the race.
Hopefully we will see that coming to fruition for Sisson after such a promising qualifying and opening lap to the race as well. Zoran just keeping his nose clean, as he always tends to do, up in 4th now. It's 9.5 seconds between himself and Gelbavand, or thereabouts, but it's 6 seconds of penalties for Gelbavand. So Zoran, if he is able to put on a bit of a spurt of pace, might be able to get within range there, but it would be, again, a bit of a tall order. Gelbavand maybe needs to pick up one more penalty for that to become a realistic option for the Hungarian in the Renault, as BenQ goes up to 12 seconds now, and that means that Jakov is within that window, so looking to inherit 7th from BenQ at the line, but it's pretty close. 10.7 seconds between the two of them.
Yeah, the McLaren driver in his debut race would love to get more points. BenQ, I'm sure, would not want to lose more points after having a shocking race last week. He's done a good job to keep it on track, but it's not good enough, because you do want to keep those penalties away from you, and clearly he has not been able to do that. He's been a little too greedy with the track limits, but hopefully he learns the lesson and improves on it next time out. But either way, we look towards the front of the field. Hittinen is now 3.3 behind Bogan. So even though Bogan had the fastest lap of the race, Hittinen started to close that gap, and he's gotten 7 tenths on his teammate, but he's going to have to do a little more than that if he wants to catch up with 3.5 laps remaining. So have to see what the Finnish driver can do.
Yeah, it was a slow lap from Bogan that has enabled this, actually. A whole second slower on last lap than the lap before. So Hittinen should be trying to take advantage, and hoping that Bogan has a couple more laps like that, because if he does, it will get a little bit closer between the two at the end. Probably still not quite close enough, and I don't think Bogan is going to have laps quite that slow for the remainder of the race. Hittinen will see that gap coming down, and every time that gap comes down by a significant margin, he might just G himself on a little bit there in the cockpit, hoping that maybe to take this inspiration and run with it. But it's just not to be right now for him. He was going pretty well in the opening sector of this lap, so I'll be interested to see what it is when he comes across the line. It's going to be a 1:35.8, so that's a decent lap time from Hittinen, actually. A couple tenths faster than what he's managed thus far. Meanwhile, Bogan, what did he record last time around? It was a 1:36.2, so he stopped the bleeding a little bit, but still 5 tenths of a second difference between himself and his teammate, as Hittinen is ever so slightly closing him down.
Yeah, I noticed on that last lap, Hittinen had double the battery at one point to what Bogan had, so I think that was part of Bogan's issue, but the two of them now were sitting at 40% ERS as they went through the arena section of the track. So Bogan's been able to recover that little bit, and he's doing just fine. Gelbavand, a little farther back, had similar amounts of ERS as well, but you know, they're going to have to really burn it if they want to make any headway right now. Otherwise, it's kind of just sitting there. But definitely, I'm noticing it's a lot easier to save ERS in the wet around here. So we got a yellow flag out of Magnussen Beck. It is Codemasters going very slowly. Well, back up to speed now. But Kilachu goes purple overall with a 35 flat. I don't think anyone's going to beat that lap.
Where was that for the rest of this race, Kilachu? I mean, we've seen some good pace from the Racing Point driver, but that is a huge step change right there. 8 tenths of a second faster than he's gone at any other point during this race. Hittinen not able to emulate it. He's actually 2 tenths down on his best through Sector 2. Keeping pace with Bogan over the course of this lap, but keeping pace is not going to be enough when you are 3.2 seconds behind. So Hittinen needs to get that wiggle on, as we mentioned. Jakob staying within 12 seconds of BenQ, but did pick up a 3-second time penalty, so that's all going to be a bit of a moot point, unless he can get within 9 seconds of BenQ up ahead, who still is at that magical 1-second barrier to Oxygen.
Yeah, that gap's that the three of them have kind of been stagnant with their pace, Oxygen, BenQ, and Jakob, because the gap's kind of been similar between the three of them these last 5 or 6 laps. So it's going to take a miracle at that rate for Jakob to get the 1.2 seconds, but it's definitely not impossible because a little bit of battling or a mistake can change the stakes. But either way, Bogan 3.2 seconds ahead with a little more than a lap and a half left in the race. The Williams driver was just robbed, by looks of the Grand Slam, because I do not believe he'll be able to beat Kalachi's fastest lap, as that was just a monstrous lap, a full 7/10 faster. But I'm sure he'll be fine with picking up all 25 points from winning the race and saying he had pole position, and he's led almost from start to finish outside of the brief pit window. So Polish driver having a phenomenal drive right now up front, definitely deserving all the glory today.
I think he actually has technically led every lap this race, because of course to be counted as a leader of a race, you have to have led a whole lap, and I don't think Sisson actually did that.
True.
Because he came into the pits at the end of the lap, I think, after Bogan came into the pits.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the race, he was passed by Bogan into club before the end of the first lap as well. So I think Bogan could still technically claim the Grand Slam if he was able to set the fastest lap of this race, but he doesn't look like doing so, as he's now 7/10 of a second down on his own personal best, and just sort of cruising it down to the end of the race now, with Hittinen getting within that 3-second mark. This would be so exciting if Bogan had a penalty right now, but unfortunately he does not. Catomatic falling off the road up ahead of them again. Yet again, it's through turn 5 that the Ferrari driver has been struggling. Able to get going again before we get a virtual safety car or a safety car on the final lap of this race. That's good news for Bogan. Hittinen still getting closer, but it's too little and it's too late from the Finn.
Yeah, unfortunate, but I mean, that is racing. You can't wait till the very end as Catomatic loses the rear end. Voice crack there, myself. Loses the rear end in front of Bogan as he was coming out of Luffield. Bogan unfazed by that and continuing on a 2.8 second lead over his teammate. Looking down the order, it's looking pretty stagnant everywhere else, and I believe we're looking at essentially what will be our finishing order. Is Bogan. There's one sector and one corner to go before he can claim victory around Silverstone. A long-awaited victory for the Polish driver. Doing a little bit of weaving down the hanger straight, I'm sure in excitement, because he has driven a phenomenal race, and it would definitely be deserved, and is a definitely deserved P1 for the Polish driver.
For sure, yeah. It's been a long time coming for Bogan. A lot of pole positions thus far this season, and second in the championship, but not a win to his name until now, as he comes through the final corner, loses it almost across the line, but it is going to be the win for the Polish driver. Bogan taking it in Silverstone, with Hittinen making it a Williams 1-2 at the Constructors' Home Grand Prix. Then Gelderland coming across the line in third, quite a way behind them, with penalties in his pockets as well. Zoran not close enough to capitalize on that fact, as he will end up 3.4 seconds down once the penalties have been computed. In fourth for the Renault driver. Sisson with by far his best result of the season in fifth. Oxygen's had a solid race, if unremarkable, to come across the line in sixth, not having to worry about BenQ behind because the Haas driver has an awful lot of penalties. Jakob in his debut will claim points, and decent points at that, coming across the line in eighth, and can't quite claim it away from BenQ as he picked up a 3-second time penalty of his own. If he hadn't picked up that time penalty, he would have been within the 12-second window needed to claim 7th, but as it is, 8th will have to do for the newcomer in the McLaren. Kalachi across the line, the last one to be across that line, as he will claim 9th, and it's a tale of what could have been once again for the Frenchman.
Yeah, very strong performance by most of the field today. It's unfortunate that Kalachi did have that moment. Both him and Catomatic had moments coming out of the final corner, smacking the wall, which definitely ruined their races. But either way, Bogan is at the top step of our podium today in AOR PC F2. A very phenomenal and dominating drive for the Polish driver. And just led from almost start to finish, and with your logic, I believe he did. So it's a very great job for the Williams driver and a Williams as a constructor overall, as they were able to nab their first 1-2 of the season. Great job for the Williams team.
Yeah, they have been dominant thus far, those two Williams boys. Ever since Sipos Patrick was promoted, they have definitely looked like the class of the field, and they proved it here once and for all with a 1-2 in tricky conditions at Silverstone. And when they didn't even lock out the front row as well, but their quality came through in the race. Good job from them. Well done, and I think that's going to be about all from me as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, who would you have as your driver of the day? Because I think I know who I would have.
Oh, it's Bogan. For
Yep.
me, it absolutely has to be Bogan there. There were a couple of good performances. Hittonen did well. Zoran did well. Bogan did better.
Yes, Bogan just, dominating driver there. Definitely the driver of the day for us with that phenomenal drive. And like Ladder said, that is all for us today. Not much else to really cover, as this was a very strong drive for the Williams pair. Not as much action as we'd like, but nevertheless exciting as always. This has been a great day today, and this is Fizzymon and a Ladder signing off for you today. We hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening, and see you guys next week for more AOR PC F2 action.